Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another useful and powerful episode here at Code Your English. I am very happy that you are here today. I hope you are doing well, feeling good, and having a peaceful day. If this is your first time listening to this podcast, then welcome. And if you are one of my regular listeners, thank you so much for coming back again. It truly means a lot to me. Today, we are going to talk about something very important, something that can slowly change the way we feel, the way we think, and even the way we live our lives. Today's topic is train your brain for positive thinking. Now, before we start, I want to ask you a few simple questions. Please listen carefully and think about your answers. Do you often think negatively about yourself? Do you sometimes feel worried too much, even about small things? Do small problems stay in your mind for a long time? Maybe someone says something small, but you keep thinking about it again and again. Maybe you make one mistake, and then your mind tells you, you are not good enough. Or maybe sometimes you feel stressed, tired, or sad, and you do not know why. If you said yes to any of these questions, then please know something important. You are not alone. Many people struggle with negative thinking. In fact, sometimes our minds become too busy with worry, fear, stress, or overthinking. We think too much about the future. We think too much about our problems. Sometimes we compare ourselves to others and feel sad. We see other people doing well, speaking English better, getting success, or looking confident. And then we start asking ourselves difficult questions. Why am I not like them? Why is my progress so slow? Will I ever improve? These kinds of thoughts can make us feel tired inside. But here is something important that I want you to remember from the beginning of this episode. Your mind can learn new ways of thinking. Yes, that is true. Just like we train our body through exercise, we can also train our brain. Positive thinking is not magic, and it does not mean pretending that life is always perfect. It does not mean ignoring problems or acting happy all the time. Life is not always easy, and problems are real. But positive thinking means learning how to think in a healthier, calmer, and stronger way. It means helping your mind become your friend instead of your enemy. And do you know something interesting? The way you think affects many parts of your life. It affects your confidence, your happiness, your motivation, and even your English learning journey. If you always tell yourself, I cannot do this, then your confidence becomes weak. But if you slowly start saying, I am learning, or I will improve step by step, something starts changing inside you. Your mind slowly becomes stronger. In today's episode, we are going to learn simple and practical ways to train our brain for positive thinking. Do not worry. I will explain everything in a very easy and simple way so that everyone can understand. We will talk about why our brain thinks negatively, how negative thoughts affect us, and most importantly, what simple daily habits can help us think more positively. You do not need to become perfect. You only need to take small steps, one day at a time. So, if you are ready, find a comfortable place, relax, and stay with me until the end of this episode. I truly believe this conversation can help you understand yourself better and slowly build a healthier and happier mind. Let us begin this journey together. What is positive thinking? Now, before we learn how to train our brain for positive thinking, we first need to understand something very important. What does positive thinking really mean? Many people hear these words and think, positive thinking means always being happy, smiling all the time, or pretending that life is perfect. Some people think positive thinking means ignoring problems and acting like nothing is wrong. But honestly, that is not true at all. Positive thinking is not about pretending that bad things do not happen. It is not about acting strong every second or forcing yourself to smile when life feels difficult. Positive thinking is much more real and much more helpful than that. Let me explain this in a very simple way. Positive thinking means learning how to think in a healthier, calmer, and kinder way, especially when life becomes difficult. It means changing the way we talk to ourselves and the way we look at problems. It does not mean saying everything is perfect, because life is not perfect. Problems happen to everyone. Stress happens. Mistakes happen. Sad days happen. Challenges happen. But positive thinking teaches us not to let those difficult moments control our whole mind. For example, imagine that you are learning English. Maybe one day you try to speak English, but you make mistakes. Maybe you forget vocabulary. Maybe you feel nervous when speaking. Maybe someone speaks English better than you, and suddenly you start feeling bad about yourself. At that moment, your mind can go in two different directions. One direction is negative thinking, and the other direction is positive thinking. Negative thinking sounds something like this. I always fail. My English is terrible. I will never improve. Everyone is better than me. Why should I even try? Have you ever said something like this to yourself? Many people do. Sometimes we become very hard on ourselves. One small mistake happens, and suddenly our mind turns it into a very big problem. We forget all the progress we already made. We only focus on what went wrong. But now, let us look at positive thinking. Positive thinking does not ignore the mistake. It does not pretend that everything is perfect. Instead, it says something healthier and more realistic. Instead of saying, I always fail, positive thinking says, I made a mistake, but I can improve. Do you hear the difference? The mistake is still there, but the thinking becomes calmer and more hopeful. Instead of saying, my English is terrible, positive thinking says, my English is improving slowly. This sentence is important because it accepts reality while also giving hope. You see, positive thinking is not fake thinking. It is realistic thinking with hope. It means saying, yes, this situation is hard, but I will try. It means saying, yes, I am struggling, but I am learning. It means understanding that growth takes time. Sometimes people think positive thinking means never feeling sad, worried, or stressed. But that is impossible because we are human beings. We all have emotions. Some days we feel happy, and some days we feel tired, confused, or worried. Positive thinking does not stop these feelings. Instead, it helps us manage them better. Imagine this situation. You apply for a job, but you do not get selected. Negative thinking may say, I am not good enough. I always fail. Nobody wants me. These thoughts can make someone feel hopeless. But positive thinking sounds different. It may say, this feels disappointing, but maybe this was not the right opportunity. I can learn from this and try again. The problem is still real. The disappointment is still real. But the thinking becomes healthier. Or imagine you make a mistake in front of people while speaking English. Negative thinking may tell you, everyone is laughing at you. You are embarrassing yourself. But positive thinking says, It is okay to make mistakes. Mistakes help me learn. Think about children for a moment. When children learn to walk, they fall many times, but they do not stop forever. They try again and again until walking becomes easy. Learning English, building confidence, and improving ourselves works in the same way. Sometimes our mind becomes our biggest enemy. We repeat negative sentences every day without even noticing it. We say things like, "I am not smart enough," "I cannot do this," "I am too slow," or "Nothing good happens to me." After some time, these thoughts become habits. We start believing them. And when we believe negative thoughts too much, they affect our confidence, motivation, and happiness. That is why learning positive thinking is so important. The way we think affects the way we feel, and the way we feel affects the way we act. Now, I want you to remember something very important. Positive thinking does not mean you must become positive overnight. This is not a race. You do not need to suddenly become a very confident or happy person. Training your brain takes time, just like learning English takes time. Nobody becomes fluent in one day. In the same way, nobody changes their thinking in one day. Positive thinking grows slowly through small daily habits. Maybe today you catch one negative thought and change it. That is progress. Maybe tomorrow you stop yourself from overthinking one small problem. That is progress too. Maybe next week you speak to yourself in a kinder way. That matters. Small changes become big changes when we continue practicing. So, if there is one thing I want you to remember from this part of the episode, it is this. Positive thinking is not about ignoring problems. It is about learning to face problems with a healthier, calmer, and stronger mind. Life will still have challenges, but when your thinking changes, the way you handle those challenges also begins to change. And the beautiful thing is this: you can train your brain to think in a better way, one small step at a time. Why our brain thinks negatively. Now, after understanding what positive thinking really means, there is an important question we need to ask. If positive thinking is helpful, then why do so many people think negatively? Why do we worry too much? Why do bad thoughts come into our mind so easily? Why does our brain sometimes focus more on problems than good things? If you have ever asked yourself these questions, then you are not alone. Many people wonder, why do I think this way? And today, I want to help you understand something very important. The truth is this: negative thinking is actually a very normal part of being human. First, we need to understand that our brain is always trying to protect us. Yes, even when it feels annoying, your brain often believes it is helping you. Long ago, humans lived in dangerous situations. People had to protect themselves from animals, danger, hunger, and many risks. Because of this, the human brain slowly learned to notice danger very quickly. It learned to ask questions like, "What could go wrong?" or "What should I be careful about?" This helped people survive. Even today, our brain still works in a similar way. It tries to protect us from pain, failure, embarrassment, or disappointment. For example, imagine you want to speak English in front of others, but suddenly your mind says, "What if you make mistakes? What if people laugh at you? What if you sound bad?" That voice inside your mind may feel negative, but often it comes from fear. Your brain thinks it is protecting you from feeling embarrassed or hurt. Fear and worry are very natural emotions. Every person feels afraid sometimes. Every person worries sometimes. Maybe you worry about money, your future, your family, your job, your studies, or your English learning journey. Worry itself is not bad. In small amounts, worry can sometimes help us prepare better. But the problem happens when worry becomes too strong and starts controlling our thinking. When we worry too much, our mind starts creating negative stories. We imagine bad situations before they even happen. We start expecting problems, failure, or disappointment. Another reason we think negatively is because of bad experiences from the past. Sometimes life teaches us difficult lessons. Maybe someone laughed at you before. Maybe someone criticized you. Maybe you failed at something important. Maybe you tried hard, but did not get the result you wanted. These experiences can stay in our mind for a long time. Slowly, the brain starts creating protective thoughts like, "Do not try again," or "You will probably fail." It becomes a habit of thinking. For example, imagine someone tried to speak English before, but people laughed at their mistakes. After that experience, they may start thinking, "My English is bad," or "I should stay quiet." Even if they improve later, the old fear may still stay inside their mind. This happens to many people, and it is completely understandable. Another very common reason for negative thinking is comparison. This is something many of us do every day, sometimes without noticing it. We look at other people and compare our life with theirs. Maybe someone speaks English fluently, and you feel behind. Maybe someone gets success faster than you, and you feel sad. Maybe you see people online looking happy, successful, or confident, and suddenly you start asking yourself, "Why am I not like them?" But here is something important to remember. Comparison often steals our happiness. We usually compare our worst moments with someone else's best moments. We do not know their struggles, their failures, or their hard days. We only see what is visible. Everyone has a different journey, a different story, and a different timeline. Fear of failure is another reason our brain becomes negative. Sometimes we want success so badly that we become afraid of making mistakes. We think, "What if I fail? What if I am not good enough? What if people judge me?" Because of this fear, some people stop trying new things completely. They stay in their comfort zone because failure feels scary. But here is the truth. Every successful person has failed many times. Mistakes are not proof that you are weak. Mistakes are proof that you are learning. And then there is overthinking. Overthinking is when the mind keeps repeating the same worries again and again. Maybe something small happens, but your brain keeps replaying it like a movie. You think about it at night. You think about it the next day. You imagine different situations and different problems, even when nothing bad has happened yet. Overthinking can make small problems feel much bigger than they really are. Now, I want you to hear something important very carefully. Having negative thoughts does not mean there is something wrong with you. It does not mean you are weak or broken. Negative thoughts are normal. Everyone has them sometimes. Even confident people have negative thoughts. Even successful people worry sometimes. The difference is this: they do not let those thoughts control their whole life. You cannot always stop a negative thought from entering your mind, but you can learn how to respond to it. You can learn not to believe every negative thought automatically. Instead of letting the thought control you, you can slowly learn to question it, understand it, and replace it with something healthier. So, if you sometimes think negatively, please remember this: you are human. Your brain is trying to protect you, even if it does not always do it in the best way. But the good news is this: you are not stuck this way forever. Your thinking can change. Your mind can learn new habits. And slowly, step by step, you can train your brain to become calmer, healthier, and more positive. Sign number 1: negative self-talk. Now, let us talk about the first big sign of negative thinking, and this one is something many people experience every day without even noticing it. This sign is called negative self-talk. You may be wondering, what is self-talk? Well, self-talk is simply the way you speak to yourself inside your mind. It is the quiet voice in your head that talks to you every day. Sometimes this voice helps you feel confident and hopeful, but sometimes it becomes very negative and hurtful. Think about this for a moment. How do you talk to yourself when something goes wrong? What do you say to yourself after making a mistake? Imagine you try something difficult and it does not go well. Maybe you make a mistake while speaking English. Maybe you forget words during a conversation. Maybe you fail a test, make a small mistake at work, or do not achieve something you hoped for. What happens inside your mind at that moment? For many people, the mind quickly becomes very negative. Some people tell themselves things like, "I am not good enough." Others say, "I cannot do this." Some people think, "Others are better than me." Or even worse, "I always fail." Maybe these sentences sound familiar to you. Maybe you have said something like this to yourself before. If yes, please know that many people struggle with this kind of thinking. The problem with negative self-talk is that we often repeat these sentences again and again until we start believing them. Imagine hearing the same negative message every day. If your mind keeps saying, "You are not smart enough," or "You will never improve," slowly those thoughts start feeling real, even when they are not true. Let us take a simple example from learning English. Imagine you try to speak English, but you make a few mistakes. Negative self-talk may quickly say, "My English is terrible," or "I sound stupid." After hearing these thoughts again and again, some people stop practicing because they feel embarrassed or hopeless. But the truth is, making mistakes is a normal part of learning. Nobody becomes fluent without making mistakes first. Here is something very important to remember. The way we speak to ourselves matters more than we often realize. Think about this carefully. If your best friend made a mistake, would you say to them, "You are useless," or "You always fail"? Probably not. You would likely say something kind, something helpful, something encouraging. You might say, "It is okay. You are learning," or "Do not give up. You will improve." So why do we sometimes speak so harshly to ourselves? Sometimes we become our own biggest critic. We are kinder to strangers than we are to ourselves. But your mind listens to the words you repeat every day. If you always speak negatively to yourself, your confidence slowly becomes weaker. You start doubting yourself even before trying. But if you slowly change the way you speak to yourself, something powerful begins to happen. This does not mean you must suddenly become extremely positive. It simply means becoming more aware. The first step is noticing the words you use inside your mind. Start paying attention to your thoughts. When something goes wrong, stop for a moment and ask yourself, "What am I saying to myself right now?" Maybe you often say, "I am too slow." Maybe you think, "I will never succeed." Maybe you compare yourself to others and say, "Everyone is better than me." Today, I want you to ask yourself one honest question. What negative thing do you often tell yourself? Take a moment and really think about it. There is no need to judge yourself. Just notice it. Awareness is the first step toward change. You cannot improve something you do not notice. And sometimes, simply becoming aware of negative self-talk is the beginning of building a healthier and kinder mind. Remember this: just because a negative thought enters your mind does not mean it is true. Thoughts are not always facts. Sometimes they are only fears, worries, or habits. And the beautiful thing is this: you can slowly learn to change the way you speak to yourself, one small step at a time. Sign number 2. Always expecting bad things. Now, let us move to another very common sign of negative thinking. This sign is something many people experience quietly inside their mind, sometimes without even realizing it. The second sign is always expecting bad things to happen. In simple words, this means your mind automatically thinks something will go wrong, even before anything actually happens. Have you ever noticed this happening to you? Maybe before trying something new, your mind quickly starts creating negative stories. Instead of thinking, maybe this will go well, your brain immediately says, what if I fail? What if something goes wrong? What if people laugh at me? Or, what if I embarrass myself? If this sounds familiar, you are definitely not alone. Many people think this way. Sometimes our brain becomes very good at expecting problems. It starts imagining the worst situation before we even take the first step. This kind of thinking can make life feel stressful and tiring. Instead of feeling excited about new opportunities, we feel nervous, afraid, and unsure. Slowly, fear becomes stronger than confidence. Let us take a simple example that many English learners understand very well. Imagine you have a chance to speak English with someone. Maybe it is your teacher, a friend, or even an online speaking partner. But before you even start speaking, your mind begins talking negatively. It says things like, I will make mistakes. I will forget words. They will think my English is bad. I will embarrass myself. Because of these fears, some people decide not to speak at all. They stay quiet, even though speaking practice could help them improve. But think about this carefully for a moment. What if the situation goes better than you expected? What if the person is kind? What if making mistakes actually helps you learn? Sometimes the scary story in our mind is much worse than reality. Many times, we suffer more in our imagination than in real life. This also happens when people start a new job. Before the first day, the mind may say, I will not be good enough. Everyone will be better than me. I will fail. These thoughts can make someone feel stressed before they even begin. But often, after some time, they realize things were not as bad as they imagined. They slowly learn, improve, and feel more comfortable. Meeting new people can also feel scary when negative thinking takes control. Maybe you want to make new friends or talk to someone new, but your mind says, they will not like me, or I will say something wrong. Because of these thoughts, some people avoid social situations completely. They stay inside their comfort zone because fear feels stronger than hope. The difficult thing about always expecting bad things is that it slowly affects confidence. If you always believe something bad will happen, you may stop trying new things. You may avoid opportunities. You may give up before even starting. Over time, this can make your world feel smaller and smaller. But here is something important I want you to remember. Just because your mind predicts something bad does not mean it will happen. Your thoughts are not always facts. Sometimes your brain is simply trying to protect you from disappointment, failure, or embarrassment. But protection is not always helpful when fear stops us from growing. I want you to ask yourself an honest question today. Do I often expect bad things before trying something new? Maybe before speaking English, before meeting people, before applying for a job, or before learning something difficult. Just notice it. Do not judge yourself. Awareness is powerful. The goal is not to stop all fear because fear is a normal human emotion. The goal is to stop fear from controlling your choices. Sometimes courage does not mean feeling confident. Sometimes courage simply means trying, even when your mind feels afraid. And remember this: many good things in life happen only after we take a chance. If we always expect the worst, we may miss opportunities that could help us grow, learn, and become stronger. Why positive thinking can change your life. Now, after talking about negative thinking and the signs we should notice, you may be wondering something important. Can positive thinking really change our life? Does the way we think actually matter that much? The simple answer is yes. The way we think affects many parts of our daily life, often more than we realize. Our thoughts affect our emotions, our confidence, our actions, and even the decisions we make every day. Think about this for a moment. Imagine waking up in the morning and immediately thinking, "Today will be terrible," or "Nothing good ever happens to me." How do you think you will feel? Probably tired, stressed, or unmotivated. You may not feel excited to work, study, speak to people, or even try your best. But now, imagine starting your day with a different thought. Something simple like, "Today may not be perfect, but I will do my best." Or, "I can handle today step by step." Do you notice the difference? The problems may still exist, but your mindset becomes calmer and stronger. One important way positive thinking can change your life is by helping reduce stress. Life can sometimes feel heavy. We all have responsibilities, worries, and difficult moments. But when we always think negatively, stress becomes even bigger. Our mind keeps repeating worries again and again. We imagine bad situations before they even happen. Positive thinking helps us slow down and think more clearly. Instead of saying, "Everything is going wrong," we begin asking, "What small thing can I do to improve this situation?" Slowly, this healthier way of thinking can make us feel calmer inside. Positive thinking can also help build confidence. Confidence does not suddenly appear one day. It grows little by little through our thoughts and actions. Imagine always saying to yourself, "I cannot do this," or "I am not good enough." After hearing these words many times, your confidence naturally becomes weak. But what happens if you slowly start changing those words? Instead of saying, "I cannot do this," you say, "This is difficult, but I will try." Instead of saying, "I always fail," you say, "I am learning from my mistakes." These small changes may sound simple, but they can slowly make you feel stronger. Positive thinking can even improve relationships with other people. When we are always negative, stressed, or angry, it can affect how we speak to others. Sometimes negative thinking makes us misunderstand people or expect the worst from them. But when our mind becomes calmer and healthier, communication often improves too. We become more patient, kinder, and more understanding with friends, family, and the people around us. Now let us talk about something many listeners of Code Your English care deeply about: learning English. Positive thinking can help your English journey in powerful ways. Many English learners lose confidence because they compare themselves to others or feel embarrassed by mistakes. Some people stop speaking because they think, "My English is terrible," or "I sound bad." But positive thinking changes the story. Instead of saying, "I am terrible at English," you begin saying, "I am improving slowly." Instead of feeling ashamed of mistakes, you start seeing mistakes as part of learning. Think about it like this. If your mind always tells you to quit, learning becomes harder. But if your mind encourages you, even in small ways, you stay motivated longer. And motivation matters because learning English takes time. Nobody becomes fluent in 1 week or 1 month. Success comes from practice, patience, and believing that improvement is possible. Positive thinking can also improve speaking confidence. Many learners understand English but feel afraid to speak. Why? Because fear fills the mind with negative thoughts. What if I make mistakes? What if people judge me? What if I forget words? But when you practice positive thinking, you slowly learn to say, "It is okay to make mistakes," or "Every time I speak, I improve." This mindset makes speaking feel less scary. I want you to remember one important message from this part of the episode. Your thoughts affect your actions. If you think you cannot do something, you may stop trying. But if you believe improvement is possible, you are more likely to keep going. The way you think becomes the way you act, and the way you act slowly shapes your future. Positive thinking will not remove every problem in your life. Difficult days will still come. Challenges will still happen. But positive thinking can help you face those challenges with more strength, more hope, and more confidence. And sometimes, changing your thinking is the first step toward changing your life. Daily habit. Number 1. Watch your thoughts. Now that we understand how negative thinking works and how positive thinking can improve our life, let us start learning some simple daily habits that can help us train our brain. And the first habit is very powerful, even though it sounds very simple. This habit is called watch your thoughts. At first, this may sound a little strange. You may ask, what does that mean? Well, watching your thoughts simply means paying attention to what is happening inside your mind. It means noticing the thoughts that come into your head during the day, especially the negative ones. Many people go through life without paying attention to their thoughts. Negative thinking becomes so automatic that they do not even notice it anymore. Think about this for a moment. During the day, how many things do you quietly say to yourself inside your mind? Maybe after making a mistake, your brain says, "I am so bad at this." Maybe after seeing someone more successful, your mind says, "I will never be like them." Maybe before trying something new, you think, "I cannot do this." These thoughts can happen very quickly, almost automatically. Sometimes they come and go so fast that we do not even realize they are there. That is why awareness is so important. You cannot change a habit if you do not first notice it. Imagine trying to clean a room in the dark. It would be difficult because you cannot clearly see the mess. But when you turn on the light, everything becomes easier to understand. Watching your thoughts is like turning on the light inside your mind. Let me give you a simple example. Imagine you are practicing English speaking, and suddenly you make a mistake. Without thinking, your mind quickly says, "My English is terrible." Usually, many people immediately believe this thought, and feel disappointed. But this time, instead of believing the thought automatically, stop for a moment and notice it. Simply say to yourself, "Wait, I just had a negative thought." Then ask yourself one very important question. Is this thought true? This question is powerful because sometimes our thoughts are not completely true. For example, if you say, "My English is terrible," ask yourself honestly, is that really true? Maybe your English is not perfect yet, but maybe you are improving. Maybe you know more vocabulary than before. Maybe you understand podcasts better now. Maybe you are trying hard every day. So perhaps the thought is not fully true. Here is another example. Imagine your mind says, "I always fail." Stop and ask yourself, is this really true? Always? Every single time? Probably not. Maybe you failed sometimes, but maybe you also succeeded many times. Sometimes negative thinking uses extreme words like always, never, or everything. These words can make problems feel much bigger than they really are. The goal of watching your thoughts is not to become perfect or stop every negative thought immediately. That is not realistic. Even positive and confident people still have negative thoughts sometimes. The goal is simply to become more aware. Instead of letting negative thoughts control your mind automatically, you slowly learn to notice them and question them. I want to give you a very small exercise today. It is simple, but it can be powerful if you practice it honestly. At some point today, try to notice one negative thought that comes into your mind. Just one. Maybe it happens at work, during study, while learning English, or while thinking about your future. When the thought appears, do not judge yourself. Do not feel bad. Just notice it and ask yourself, is this thought true? Maybe the answer will surprise you. Remember this. You do not have to believe every thought that enters your mind. Thoughts are not always facts. Sometimes they are fear. Sometimes they are old habits. Sometimes they are worries. The more you practice watching your thoughts, the more control you slowly gain over your mind. And this is where real change begins, not by fighting your thoughts, but by learning to understand them. Daily habit. Number 2. Change negative words. Now let us move to the second daily habit that can help train your brain for positive thinking. This habit is simple, but it can slowly create powerful changes in the way you think. The habit is this: change negative words. You may wonder, can words really make such a big difference? The answer is yes. The words we repeat to ourselves matter more than we often realize. The way we speak inside our mind affects how we feel, how confident we become, and even how we act. If we constantly use negative words, our mind slowly begins to believe them. But if we slowly start changing those words, we can begin changing the way we think. Many people do not notice how negative their inner language has become. Sometimes negative words become such a normal habit that we say them automatically. For example, maybe something difficult happens and your mind immediately says, "I can't do this." Or maybe you make a mistake and tell yourself, "I am terrible at this." Some people say things like, "I will never improve," "I am not smart enough," or "Others are much better than me." These sentences may feel true in the moment, but often they come from fear, frustration, or disappointment. Now, this habit does not mean pretending everything is perfect. It does not mean lying to yourself or saying unrealistic things. We are not trying to become fake positive. Instead, we are learning how to use healthier and more helpful words. Small word changes can create big emotional changes. For example, instead of saying, I can't, try saying, I will try. Do you notice the difference? The first sentence closes the door immediately. It sounds hopeless, but the second sentence feels open and possible. It gives your brain a chance to grow and improve. Imagine you are afraid to speak English. Negative thinking may say, I can't speak English. But what happens if you change those words to, speaking English is difficult for me right now, but I will try? Suddenly, the situation feels less scary. The problem is still there, but now there is also hope. Here is another example that many English learners understand very well. Instead of saying, I am terrible at English, try saying, I am learning every day. This sentence is much kinder and more realistic. Learning a language takes time. Nobody becomes fluent quickly. Every learner makes mistakes. Every learner struggles sometimes. But struggling does not mean failing. It often means learning. Think about a child learning how to walk. Imagine if the child fell down one time and said, I am terrible at walking. I quit. That sounds strange, right? Children keep trying because mistakes are part of learning. In many ways, learning English, building confidence, or improving yourself works the same way. Another helpful thing to remember is that your brain listens to repetition. If you repeat negative words every day, your brain slowly accepts them as truth. But if you repeat healthier words again and again, your brain slowly begins learning a new way of thinking. This does not happen overnight. Real change takes time, but small daily practice matters. I want you to try something simple today. Pay attention to the words you use when talking to yourself. Notice if you often say things like, I can't, I always fail, or I am not good enough. Then try replacing just one negative sentence with something kinder and more realistic. Maybe instead of saying, I will never improve, say, improvement takes time. Instead of saying, I am too weak, say, I am growing. Instead of saying, I failed, say, I learned something. Remember this, words are powerful. The way you speak to yourself becomes the way you see yourself. And slowly, one small sentence at a time, you can train your brain to think in a healthier and more positive way. Daily habit number 3. Protect your mind. Now let us move to another important daily habit that can help train your brain for positive thinking. This habit is called protect your mind. Many people work hard to protect their body. They try to eat healthy food, drink water, sleep well, and stay physically healthy. But sometimes we forget something equally important. We also need to protect our mind. Think about this for a moment. Every day, your mind is receiving information from many different places. You watch videos, read news, scroll on social media, listen to people, and spend time in different environments. All of these things can influence the way you think and feel. Just like unhealthy food can affect your body, unhealthy influences can affect your mind. One important way to protect your mind is to avoid too much negativity. This does not mean pretending bad things do not exist. Problems are part of life, and it is normal to know what is happening around us. But if your mind is surrounded by negativity all day, it can slowly affect your mood, confidence, and thinking. For example, imagine spending hours every day watching negative videos, reading angry comments online, or listening to people who always complain. Slowly, your mind may start feeling heavier and more negative too. Without even noticing it, you may begin thinking more negatively about yourself, your future, and your life. This is why it is important to be careful about what you watch online. The internet can be a wonderful place for learning and growth, but it can also sometimes increase stress and negative thinking. For example, social media can make people compare themselves too much. You may see someone speaking perfect English, traveling, looking successful, or living what seems like a perfect life. Then suddenly, your mind starts saying, "Why am I not like them?" or "I am falling behind." But remember something important. Online life is not always real life. People often show only their best moments. They do not always show their struggles, mistakes, stress, or difficult days. Comparing your whole life to someone's best moments can make you feel unhappy for no reason. Another powerful way to protect your mind is by spending time with supportive people. The people around us can affect our thinking more than we realize. Imagine always being around people who say negative things like, "You cannot do this," "You will fail," or "There is no point trying." After hearing this often, it becomes easier to believe those words. But supportive people can create a very different feeling. Good friends, kind family members, teachers, or encouraging communities can remind you to keep going. Sometimes all we need is one supportive voice saying, "You can improve," or "Do not give up." Positive people do not mean perfect people. They simply help you feel encouraged instead of hopeless. This is especially important for English learners. Try spending time with people who motivate you to practice, improve, and stay confident. Listen to podcasts, join communities, or watch content that inspires learning instead of fear. Another simple habit that helps protect the mind is reading or listening to positive things. What you feed your mind matters. If you regularly listen to useful podcasts, read encouraging books, or watch educational content, your thinking slowly begins to change. Little by little, your mind becomes stronger and healthier. For example, when you listen to positive and useful content, you may start thinking, "Maybe I can improve," or "Maybe I should not give up." These small mindset changes are powerful over time. I want you to ask yourself one honest question today. What am I feeding my mind every day? Is it mostly negativity, stress, and comparison? Or is it encouragement, growth, and learning? Remember this: protecting your mind is not selfish. It is healthy. Your environment matters. The things you watch matter. The people around you matter. And when you slowly choose healthier influences, you also help your mind become calmer, stronger, and more positive. Because the truth is simple. The things you give your attention to often shape the way you think. Daily habit number 4. Practice gratitude. Now let us move to another beautiful and powerful daily habit that can slowly train your brain for positive thinking. This habit is called practicing gratitude. At first, this word may sound a little big or difficult, but the meaning is actually very simple. Gratitude means taking time to notice and appreciate the good things in your life, even the small things that we often forget. Many times, our brain becomes very busy, focusing on problems. We think about stress, worries, mistakes, fears, or things we do not have. Maybe we think about money problems, difficulties in life, slow progress, or things that are not going the way we want. And while these struggles are real, sometimes our mind becomes so focused on problems that we forget to notice the good things that still exist around us. Practicing gratitude does not mean pretending life is perfect. It does not mean ignoring difficult moments or acting happy all the time. Life can be hard, and everyone goes through struggles. Gratitude simply means making space to notice the good things too. It means teaching your brain not to focus only on what is missing, but also on what is already present. Let me give you a simple example. Imagine waking up in the morning and immediately thinking about everything that is wrong. Maybe you think, I am stressed, my progress is too slow, or my life is difficult. After some time, this way of thinking can make the day feel heavy. But now imagine starting your day differently. Imagine taking a small moment to think about one or two good things in your life. Maybe your health is okay. Maybe you have food to eat. Maybe someone cares about you. Maybe you are learning and improving, even slowly. Suddenly, the day may feel a little lighter. Sometimes we forget how powerful small blessings can be. For example, good health is something many people only fully appreciate when they lose it. If your body is healthy enough to walk, study, work, or learn, that is something meaningful. Family can also be a reason for gratitude. Even if family relationships are not perfect, having people who care about us can bring comfort. Food is another simple thing we often forget to appreciate. Having something to eat each day is something many people around the world struggle with. And let us talk about something very important for listeners of Code Your English, your English learning journey. Sometimes learners become frustrated because progress feels slow. You may think, I am still not fluent, or I still make mistakes. But what if you looked at your progress differently? Maybe today you understand more English than last year. Maybe you know more vocabulary. Maybe you feel a little more confident speaking. Small progress is still progress, and that matters. One of the beautiful things about gratitude is that it slowly changes what your brain notices. When you practice gratitude regularly, your mind slowly becomes better at seeing good things instead of only problems. This does not happen overnight, but little by little, your mindset begins to feel calmer and more positive. Now, I want to give you a very simple exercise to try today. It only takes a few moments, but it can make a difference if you do it honestly. Before you sleep tonight, or even right now while listening to this episode, think of 3 good things in your life today. They do not need to be big things. In fact, small things are often the most meaningful. Maybe one good thing is that you learned something new today. Maybe you had a nice conversation. Maybe you enjoyed a meal. Maybe you practiced English. Maybe someone smiled at you or helped you. Whatever it is, just notice it. Remember this: a positive mindset does not come from having a perfect life. It grows when we learn to notice the good, even during difficult times. Life will always have challenges, but gratitude reminds us that even on hard days, there are still things worth appreciating. And sometimes, noticing those small good things can slowly make a big difference in the way we feel. Daily habit number 5. Speak kindly to yourself. Now let us move to the 5th and final daily habit in this section of our journey. This habit is very simple to understand, but it can be very powerful when you practice it every day. The habit is this: speak kindly to yourself. Many people do not realize how they talk to themselves inside their mind. We often pay attention to how we speak to others, but we forget to notice how we speak to ourselves. And the truth is, the way you talk to yourself can affect your confidence, your emotions, and even your motivation in daily life. Think about this for a moment. If your close friend makes a mistake, what would you say to them? Would you call them useless? Would you tell them they are not good enough? Probably not. You would likely try to comfort them. You might say something like, "It is okay," or "You are learning," or "Try again, you can improve." You would speak with kindness because you care about them. But now ask yourself an honest question. When you make a mistake, do you speak to yourself in the same kind way? Or do you become very strict and negative with yourself? Many people are much harder on themselves than they are on others. After making a small mistake, their inner voice may say things like, "I am useless," "I always fail," or "I am not good enough." These words can feel very heavy inside the mind. The problem is not the mistake itself. Everyone makes mistakes. The real problem is the way we speak to ourselves after the mistake. When we use harsh words again and again, our mind starts to believe them. Slowly, we begin to lose confidence. We may feel less motivated to try again. We may start avoiding challenges because we are afraid of failing again. This is why learning to speak kindly to yourself is so important. It does not mean ignoring problems or pretending everything is perfect. It simply means choosing better words when you talk to yourself. It means being more supportive, patient, and understanding with your own mind. Let us take a simple example. Imagine you are learning English and you make a mistake while speaking. A negative inner voice may say, "I am useless at English," or "I will never be good at this." But what if you change that voice? What if instead you said, "I am still learning," or "It is okay, I made a mistake, but I can improve"? Do you feel the difference? The situation is the same, but the feeling inside becomes much lighter. When you speak kindly to yourself, something important starts to change. Your mind begins to feel safer. And when your mind feels safe, you become more confident to try new things. You become less afraid of mistakes. You start to see mistakes as part of learning, not as proof that you are not good enough. This is very important for your emotional strength. Emotional strength does not mean never feeling sad or never making mistakes. It means knowing how to support yourself when things are difficult. It means not breaking yourself down with harsh words when you are already struggling. It means becoming your own supporter instead of your own critic. Many people carry emotional pain not only because of what happens in life, but also because of how they talk to themselves about what happens. Life is not always easy, and challenges are normal. But if your inner voice is kind, even difficult situations become easier to handle. You feel more stable inside. You feel more calm and balanced. So today, I want you to try something very simple. Pay attention to your inner voice. When you make a mistake or face a challenge, notice how you respond to yourself. And then try to gently change one negative sentence into a kinder one. Instead of, "I am not good enough," try, "I am doing my best, and I am improving." Instead of, "I always fail," try, "I am learning step by step." Remember this very important message. Your mind should feel safe. You do not need to be perfect. You do not need to be harsh with yourself to grow. Real growth happens when you support yourself, encourage yourself, and keep going even when things are difficult. And slowly, as you begin to speak kindly to yourself, you will notice something beautiful. Your confidence will grow. Your fear will reduce. And your mind will become a more peaceful place to live in. Small real-life story. Now let me share a small real-life story with you. I want you to listen carefully, because maybe you will see a little part of yourself in this story. This story is about a student who was learning English, just like many of you listening right now. This student was trying very hard to improve English, but they often felt sad and discouraged. Every time they tried to speak, they made mistakes. Every time they listened to fluent speakers, they felt like they were very far behind. Slowly, they started thinking, "My English is not good," and "I will never be like them." These thoughts became stronger every day. The student also started comparing themselves with others. When they saw classmates or online speakers who spoke English more fluently, they felt small inside. Instead of feeling inspired, they felt worse about themselves. They would say things like, "Why am I not like them?" or "Everyone is better than me." This comparison slowly reduced their confidence. Because of these thoughts, the student began avoiding practice. They stopped speaking as much. They were afraid of making mistakes. Even when they knew the answer, they stayed quiet. In their mind, they already believed they were not good enough, so trying felt pointless. Every day, their negative thoughts became stronger, and their motivation became weaker. But one day, something small changed. The student heard a simple idea. Thoughts are not always true, and you can change the way you speak to yourself. At first, they did not believe it, but they decided to try something very small. Instead of saying, "I am terrible at English," they changed it to, "I am learning English step by step." Instead of saying, "I always fail," they said, "I am improving slowly." At the beginning, it felt strange. Their mind still wanted to think negatively, but they kept practicing. Every time a negative thought came, they tried to notice it and gently change it. It was not a big change. It was very small and simple, but they kept doing it again and again. Slowly, something started to change inside them. They did not become perfect, but they became more aware of their thoughts. They started feeling a little less stressed when speaking English. They began to accept that mistakes are normal. Instead of feeling ashamed, they started feeling curious. "What can I learn from this mistake?" became their new question. After some time, their confidence started to grow. They began speaking more often, even if their English was not perfect. They realized that communication is more important than perfection. Even when they made mistakes, they kept going instead of stopping. Their fears slowly became smaller, and their courage slowly became bigger. Their mindset also changed. Instead of comparing themselves to others all the time, they started focusing on their own progress. They noticed small improvements. Maybe they understood more words than before. Maybe they could speak a little more clearly. Maybe they felt a little less afraid. These small wins started to matter more to them. Day by day, the student was not magically transformed, but they were growing. Their thinking became healthier. Their speaking became more confident. And most importantly, they stopped being so harsh on themselves. They learned to be patient with their own journey. This story is important because it shows something very real. Change does not happen in one day. It happens through small thoughts, repeated every day. When you change the way you think, you slowly change the way you feel. And when you change the way you feel, you slowly change the way you act. Maybe this student is not just one person. Maybe this student represents many of us. And maybe, just like them, you can also start with one small thought today and slowly build a stronger and more positive mind. Common mistakes people make. Now that we have learned many powerful habits for training the brain for positive thinking, it is also very important to understand something else. Many people start this journey with good motivation, but they make a few common mistakes along the way. These mistakes are normal, but if we are aware of them, we can avoid disappointment and keep growing in a healthy way. One very common mistake is expecting quick results. In today's world, people want fast change. We want fast success, fast learning, and fast improvement. So when someone starts practicing positive thinking, they may expect their life to change in just a few days. They may think, if I think positively for 1 week, I will never feel negative again. But the truth is very different. Training your brain is a slow process. Just like learning English, it takes time, patience, and repetition. Your old thinking habits do not disappear instantly. They slowly change with practice. Another mistake is trying to be positive all the time. Some people believe that positive thinking means never feeling sad, angry, or worried. So when they feel a negative emotion, they think they are failing. But this is not true. Emotions are a natural part of being human. You cannot force yourself to feel happy every second of the day. Sometimes you will feel stressed, sometimes tired, and sometimes unmotivated. That is completely normal. The goal is not to remove negative emotions, but to understand them and respond in a healthier way. A third common mistake is ignoring emotions. Some people think positive thinking means pushing away all negative feelings. So when they feel sad or stressed, they try to hide it or ignore it. But emotions do not disappear just because we ignore them. In fact, ignored emotions often become stronger inside. Real positive thinking is not about denying how you feel. It is about accepting your emotions, understanding them, and gently guiding your mind back to a balanced place. It is okay to say, I am feeling sad right now, and still remind yourself, this feeling will pass, and I can handle it. Another mistake is giving up too early. Many people start practicing positive thinking for a few days or weeks, but when they still feel negative thoughts, they think it is not working. So they stop trying. But this is where most people lose progress. Changing your thinking is not a quick task. It is like building a new path in your mind. At first, the old path is very strong because you have walked on it many times before. The new path feels weak at the beginning, but if you continue practicing, the new path becomes stronger and more natural over time. It is also important to understand that setbacks are part of the process. Even if you are improving, there will still be days when negative thoughts return. This does not mean you have failed. It simply means you are human. The goal is not to become perfect, but to become aware and consistent. Every time you notice a negative thought and try to respond differently, you are making progress, even if it feels small. So the most important message in this part of the episode is this: training the brain takes time. There is no shortcut. There is no overnight change. It is a slow and steady journey. Some days will feel easy, and some days will feel difficult. But every small step matters. If you can keep your expectations realistic, you will feel less pressure and more peace in your journey. Instead of expecting instant transformation, you will start noticing small improvements. And those small improvements, over time, will create real change in the way you think, feel, and live your life. Important life lesson: your brain learns from repetition. Now we are reaching a very important life lesson in this journey of training your brain for positive thinking. This lesson is simple to understand, but very powerful if you truly reflect on it. The lesson is this: your brain learns from repetition. Let us think about this carefully. Everything you do often becomes easier over time. When you first learned how to walk, you repeated small steps again and again. When you started learning your language, you repeated words and sentences many times. Even when you learned how to use a phone or write messages, you did it repeatedly until it became natural. The same rule also applies to your thoughts. The brain learns not only from actions, but also from repeated thinking patterns. This means that thoughts are not just random ideas that come and go. When you repeat a thought many times, it slowly becomes a habit. And when a thought becomes a habit, it starts feeling automatic. For example, if someone repeats negative thoughts every day, like, "I am not good enough," or "I always fail," the brain slowly starts accepting these ideas as familiar. Not because they are true, but because they are repeated often. The brain does not always check whether a thought is correct or incorrect. It simply learns from repetition. But here is the most important part. This also works in a positive way. If negative repetition can shape your mind, then positive repetition can also shape your mind. If you slowly begin repeating healthier thoughts, kinder thoughts, and more supportive thoughts, your brain can learn a new way of thinking. This is where real change begins. Think about a simple example. If you repeat the thought, "I am improving slowly," every day, your mind slowly becomes more patient with your progress. If you repeat, "I am learning, even if I make mistakes," your brain starts becoming less afraid of failure. If you repeat, "I can try again," your mind becomes more open to challenges. These thoughts may feel small, but when repeated over time, they create a stronger mental foundation. Many people want change in their life, but they expect it to happen instantly. They think one positive thought will change everything immediately. But real transformation does not come from one moment. It comes from many small moments repeated consistently. Your brain is like a garden. Whatever you plant again and again will grow over time. If you plant negative thoughts every day, negativity grows. If you plant positive thoughts every day, positivity slowly grows. This is why consistency is more important than perfection. You do not need to think positively all the time. That is not realistic. What matters is what you repeat most often. Even if you have negative thoughts during the day, but you keep coming back to more helpful thoughts, you are training your brain in the right direction. Every small correction matters. Let me give you a very simple real-life reflection. Imagine two people. One person repeats negative thoughts every day without noticing. They say things like, "I cannot do this," "life is hard," or "nothing will change." The second person also has negative thoughts sometimes, but they try to replace them with better thoughts like, "I will try," "I am learning," or "I can improve step by step." Over time, their minds will slowly become different, not because life is different, but because their repeated thoughts are different. This is why awareness and repetition together are powerful. First, you become aware of your thoughts. Then, you gently choose better thoughts. And then, you repeat them again and again. Slowly, your brain starts accepting this new pattern as normal. So I want you to remember this deeply. Your brain listens to what you repeat every day. Not just once, not just sometimes, but repeatedly. This is where your power lies. You may not control every thought that enters your mind, but you can influence which thoughts you repeat and strengthen. And if you stay consistent, even with small positive thoughts, you will slowly begin to notice a change in the way you feel, think, and respond to life. Not overnight, but step by step, repetition by repetition. Now, we are coming to the final part of this episode, and I want to end this journey in a very calm, warm, and emotional way. If you have listened this far, I want to sincerely thank you for your time and your attention. It means a lot that you are here, learning, reflecting, and trying to improve your mindset step by step. I want you to remember something very important before we finish this episode. You are growing, even if it does not always feel like it. Sometimes growth is very slow, and because of that, we do not notice it immediately. But just because you cannot see big changes every day does not mean nothing is changing. In reality, every time you try to think differently, every time you notice a negative thought, and every time you choose a kinder thought instead, you are growing. Progress is not always loud or visible. Sometimes it is very quiet. It happens inside your mind. It happens in small decisions. It happens in moments when you stop yourself from believing a negative thought too quickly. It happens when you say to yourself, "I will try again," instead of giving up. These small moments may seem simple, but they are actually powerful signs of change. You should also remember that you do not need to be perfect. Many people think they must completely remove all negative thoughts before they can feel better. But that is not realistic. Even people who are confident and successful still have negative thoughts, sometimes. The difference is not that they never struggle. The difference is that they do not let those thoughts control their entire life. You can change your thinking, but it takes patience. It takes time for your brain to learn new habits. It takes time to build a new way of speaking to yourself. So please be patient with yourself. Do not rush your journey. Do not feel bad if you still have negative thoughts. Instead, see every small improvement as a victory. Sometimes you may feel like you are not making progress, but if you look closely, you will see small changes. Maybe you are a little less afraid than before. Maybe you recover faster from negative thoughts. Maybe you are more aware of your inner voice. These are all signs that your mind is slowly changing in a positive direction. One of the most beautiful truths is this: your mind can become your best friend. Right now, maybe your mind sometimes feels like a place of worry, fear, or overthinking. But it does not have to stay that way. With patience, awareness, and practice, your mind can become a place of support, strength, and encouragement. So keep going, even when it feels slow, even when it feels difficult, even when you do not see immediate results. Small steps matter more than big changes that never last. One kind thought, one positive replacement, one moment of awareness. These small steps slowly build a stronger and healthier mindset. And now, as we come to the end of this episode, I want to say thank you again for being here with me on Code Your English. I truly appreciate your time and your effort in learning and growing with me. If this episode helped you, I encourage you to practice even one small idea from today. Maybe start by watching your thoughts. Maybe try changing one negative sentence. Or maybe simply notice how you talk to yourself. Keep practicing a little every day. You do not need to be perfect. You just need to be consistent. If you enjoyed this episode, feel free to listen to more episodes on Code Your English. I will continue sharing simple, useful, and encouraging lessons to help you improve your English and your mindset at the same time. And if you want, you can also share your thoughts or experiences in the comments. I would love to hear from you and support your journey. Take care of yourself, stay patient with your progress, and remember this always. Your mind is learning from you every single day. So speak kindly to it, guide it gently, and believe in your growth. See you in the next episode.